FullTiltPoker.net presents Learn from the Pros.
Welcome back inside the Fox Poker Room as we continue to learn from the pros. The Professor Howard Lederer is joined by a cast of thousands, or at least four for the next few minutes, including John Juanda, who has won 3 bracelets and actually has a 4th right now if you include the Livestrong. I like that. It's a good look. Thanks for being here, John. We appreciate it. I didn't even recognize you. I've called several of your tournaments, Barry Greenstein, and the beard just threw me for a loop.
Well, you know, people are reading me too well.
Is that what it was?
Yeah, I got to change the look, yeah.
Of course, predominantly a cash game player, but the last several years, 8 tournament wins, including a pair of bracelets. Congratulations on that. Thanks for joining us. Erick Lindgren, you've been red hot the last few years with 3 major tournament wins. How you doing, buddy?
Man, just having fun playing poker. Let's talk about it.
We will. But, hold on. Ladies first, please, okay? Kristy Gazes, of course, you might recognize her as the lady who kicked everybody's butt recently on Fox Sports Net at the Win. Congratulations on that.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're all smiles still on that.
I am. A lot of shopping money.
Yeah?
Yeah.
You want to throw any this way?
Sure, baby. You got it.
I like it. I like her already. You guys have to play catch up. We do appreciate the time, gang, and we've been focusing on reading players. I mean, Eric, an amateur sits down at the table with you these days. Is it a dead giveaway, what he's doing basically every hand?
Well, no, you're going to spot him right away, though, because he's going to fumble his chips. He's going to be nervous. Maybe he's going to be really passive at first, but then you're just going to try to pick up on things. You're going to know who the amateur is right away.
Some of these people that we thought really didn't know what they were doing in the past because they couldn't handle the chips very well and they're struggling, trying to figure out what the blinds are. Those guys have been playing on the internet. You know, my dead giveaway is when the guy reaches into a pocket because he feels comfortable with a mouse. He starts clicking the bets. Kind of like, it reminds me of Peter Sellers from Being There. You know, he just hasn't been in the real world yet. But you know, we might laugh at that, but there are several of these guys I played with, like at the World Series, that in the past I would just mark them as guys who had no clue what they were doing. But some of these guys probably played more hands than I have in the last year just playing on the internet. And, you know, we may over time figure out who they are, but you know, sometimes you're out of the tournament by the time you realize, hey, this guy actually knows what he's doing. It's not so easy to play someone you haven't seen before. That's why I had to grow this beard, because too many people recognize me these days.
Hey, John, can you help us read people a little bit?
You know, contrary to public belief, I agree with what Barry just said.
That's the first time.
They know exactly what we're capable of doing, and on the other hand, we don't know about these guys. You know, they could be a great player who's trying to pretend they're not good at it, or they could be a bad player.
Well, how do you improve on disguising your tells? I mean, I imagine you guys weren't all experts the first time you sat down at the table, were you, Eric? I mean, weren't you shaking a little bit the first time?
No, I started at very low stakes. I didn't sit down and play with Howard or John or Barry in the big games, so it was very easy for me just to come in, get comfortable with the game, and go from there.
Well, you know, I mean, Eric might be, you know, one of the original true crossover pros. I mean, this is a guy that got started on the internet and has really made a very successful transition to live play. I mean, in terms of a specific tip, if you toss me a couple of cards, I can show you.
I can give you a whole deck. You're my friend.
Hey, nice, nice. Always over-deliver there, Chris.
Thanks, Phil.
I see a lot of internet guys. When you're playing on the internet, you see your cards right away.
Right.
And very often, to kind of speed things up, or if you're playing more than one game at a time, you'll look at your hand and you'll see it's a bad hand, and you'll click the fold button. And I kind of see people do that live. Like, they'll look at their cards, and if they don't like it, they kind of put them over here. And, you know, I mean, it's almost like clicking the sort of advanced action fold now button. So definitely a nice tip for an internet player who's trying to cross over from internet play to live play. Don't look at your cards until it's your turn to act, and then you can't ever give those kinds of things away.
Or at least adjust, because...
or certainly don't do that
right.
after you've looked at your cards.
Yeah, of course, again, like any one of these things, any tell that we may bring up, there's a counter tell. And so you're going to have some guys who do exactly what Howard said, but they're
they can only get away with that once.
They're selling that. Maybe they can't only get it. Well, I've seen a few guys who get away with more. You have to be observant to not fall for these things and know who does this type of stuff, who does the reverse, who's giving up their hand but they really have a strong hand. And even like John and I were saying, the problem we have playing in these tournaments with people we've never seen before, Howard may be right. They can only get away with it once, but they may have all my chips after that one time. I'm walking out the door. I may never even see that guy again. And that's what happens.
I imagine that, look, I'll admit, sometimes I get to the poker table, if I don't like my hand, I fold, and then I'm talking to my buddy, or I'm just looking around for something to drink, or whatever it is. You guys pay attention. The minute you fold, is that a huge mistake I'm making?
Of course, you have to watch everything. I mean, people reading the papers, doing the crossword. I mean, you must pay attention. It gives you information. and you can make correct decisions based on the information you get. You must watch everything. I mean, it's specifically in no-limit hold'em tournaments. You have to. It was a really hard thing for me to do, to pay attention, because I'm used to playing live and just looking around and stud and just, you know, and now you got to just focus. Earphones help a lot for a new player, I think, for me, or sunglasses if you're kind of nervous or scared, so you don't have to,
But you
know.
might miss something having earphones on too,
Yeah,
that you should see. But you know, for all of us, we have to consciously say, hey, I should be watching. And what you're supposed to be doing when you're out of a hand is you're supposed to be putting the other players on hands. And you're supposed to say to yourself, that guy didn't have anything like I really thought he had, and then you record that to yourself.
I mean, sometimes the thing that wins you a hand or wins you a tournament is something you observed on a hand you weren't in. You know, I mean, there's so much valuable information out there, and you just have to use it to your advantage.
Eric, quickly, give me 1 or 2 tips to help me read the amateur player.
All right, the first thing you need to do is you need to look at him. Like if I looked at you, you look like you have a little gamble to you. If you came and
right.
sat
A
at
little
my
swag,
table,
a little swagger?
I wouldn't call it swagger, I'd call it
Thanks.
sucker. But
Oh.
I mean, you could go with anything you want, but a guy that comes in with a jack, it looks like he has a little money to throw
Right.
around. Maybe you're going to splash around a little bit. So now I know that you might gamble more than say, look at Barry. Barry does not look like a gambler at all.
Came
to me.
from the woods, you know.
Yeah,
what the
he
heck.
looks like my rabbi, actually.
Yeah,
Right.
he looks exactly as
Balut.
smart as he is.
Right, yeah. Yeah, which we don't know what he means by that, but no.
So you stare it down, and what else? Give me one other one.
Well, just looking at the people, you need to realize right away, the minute that person sits down, you need to judge them by everything they look like. That's the most important thing right away. You have to prejudge people in poker and go from there.
That sounds very politically correct. We
Thank
appreciate
you. I had
it.
to stop.
No,
somewhere.
no, it is funny. It is funny that he said that, because I remember one time I had a dead tell on a guy that I played with for years that whenever he had a bad hand, he'd put his chips like this, he'd stack them slowly, like he was really afraid to give them up. And then I played like years later against a guy who was a dead ringer for him. And the guy now bet into me like this, you know? And I said, what am I supposed to do? I know the twin back in Decatur, Illinois bets exactly like that on a bluff. And I called the guy at bottom pair, and this guy was bluffing too. So, I mean, you don't want to stereotype, but it is kind of funny. People who look the same, at least that gives you a starting point.
Right.
And then with each individual, you go off of that, and you change as time goes on.
Well, guys, thank you very much for the time and the insight. I asked Howard this earlier. What am I thinking right now? Go ahead.
When's lunch?
Good try. Actually, we got to go to commercial break. See, I'm unreadable. I'm unreadable, even with the best pros around.
Well, you might be blank.
To learn, chat, and play with the pros, go where they live. FullTiltPoker.com.